Hi there, welcome to DIYs at the Schwowin's Nest. My name is Sandra. I'm starting off with my first project and I'm using these garden stakes that I pick up in a pack of 10 from my local Dollarama store. They come out every spring and summer, so I always grab a bunch of them because they're super easy to work with. I'm just going to take the corner edges here off to make them look a little bit more rounded. These are going to serve as my skis. I'm standing them up to figure out the angle that I want them to be at, and then I'm going to use some hot glue to glue them together. Then I'm going to give them a couple of coats of my DIY white chalk paint. This is using some talc and latex paint, just a regular ceiling paint that you can get at the hardware store. If you want the full recipe, it's down in my description box. While I let those skis dry, I'm going to take another short piece and just cut off the angle. I'm also going to paint this with a couple of coats of the white. I wanted these skis to have a bit of a stained look to them, so I am using this water-based gel stain from Americana Paints and a really rough brush, and I'm going to do somewhat of a dry brushing with it. This isn't exactly a stain material, it's more of just a gel kind of paint. I don't know, it's kind of weird, but it works really well for this project. So I'm going to continue to do this until I get the stain effect that I like. Taking the little piece, I'm going to use the same stain, but this time I'm just going to distress it around the edges. I want there to be a contrast between the skis and this little sign, so I'm just going to leave the interior more white. I got the brown on there fairly dark, but I wanted to add a little bit more texture and distressing. So I'm taking my chip brush and some black paint, and I'm just going to go over it a few times, dry brushing it and just deepening up the color. So it looks like I missed some footage here, but you get the idea. I wrote the word ski lodge and I put an arrow underneath, and now I'm just going over the letters a little bit more with my Sharpie fine point pen just to thicken them up and make them look a little bit more distinct. I have tons of little greenery pieces left over from the Christmas holidays. So I'm going to be adding two of these little pine branches to the skis, one facing down and one facing up. To add a little bit more different texture, I'm also going to be using these other little pine picks. I picked both of these up on Amazon before the holidays, and I use them a whole lot in my decor. I just love them. They look so realistic. I'm cutting these picks in half, and I'm just going to put them around the center of the skis. For the little sign, I'm going to apply a generous amount of hot glue into the center and then hold it down a little bit on an angle so it adds some character. Because this is a winter decor item, I'm going to add these little white frosted berries that I picked up after the holidays, but they were part of the Christmas decor at my Dollarama store. So I'm just going to trim off some of the little brown pieces that are the stem and then cut some smaller pieces and glue them around the sign. I'm also going to add a few single snowballs here and there. To complete this little project, I'm just taking a brush that has some white paint on it and going over the greenery to make it look like it's got some touches of snow. Just in case you don't know, the like button tells YouTube that you like my video and you'd love to see more. It helps them recommend my video to other viewers who aren't subscribed. If you aren't subscribed to my channel and you're not sure how to do that, you can hit the subscribe button below my video, but you can also hit that little red play button that I have in the right-hand lower corner, and that allows you to subscribe without leaving the video. DIY number 2 is using these little wreath forms from the Dollar Tree. They come 2 in a pack, and I believe they're about 8 inches wide. I had a little pine cone wreath hanging on my cupboard door for the Christmas holidays, and when I took it down, it looked so bare. So I decided to make one for winter. I've got tons of this buffalo check ribbon because I used it to decorate my tree. So I'm going to go ahead and glue one end on and simply wrap it all the way around this wreath form. I also made sure that each of the loops was about the same distance apart from the previous one. Now I'm just going to cut the ribbon off and hot glue it down. I'm going to use the same type of picks that I used for my skis, and I'm also going to add some of the little snowballs. But I'm going to do something a bit different with this one. I'm not going to make the greenery go all the way around the wreath. I'm just going to have it sitting towards the bottom. So I'm going to play around with it and figure out what kind of system I want to put it in. So I've decided to take these 2 pine branches and put them across at the outside, and then I'm going to fill it in with the other pine branches and some other types of greenery. So here's a little bit of my system. I've got some of the longer pine picks in between the shorter ones. I didn't want this wreath to look too Christmassy, so I decided to add some of these little vine branches. These are so full. I picked them up at Dollarama last year, and it's got a ton of little branches on it. So I'm going to trim some off and place them in between the pines. It's a little hard to tell here because all of these pieces are green, but I'm putting these vine pieces so they're kind of standing up. You can see this one's kind of vertically there instead of laying flat, and that's just going to add some more dimension. When I'm working with greenery to make a wreath, I always want to make sure that I'm putting the pieces all over the place. So I'm not working in a pattern that has one layer at the bottom and then another layer on top. You want to make sure that you wiggle things in between and make sure that it looks as natural as possible. So I decided to add some more of these little white frosted berries because they look so much like little baby snowballs. They're adorable. I'm just going to cut some pieces and then glue them all the way through the greenery. Since I covered up all the wire from the wreath form, I needed some type of hanger. So I decided on this white nautical rope. This is something that I picked up at Michael's a while ago and it's lasted me a really long time. I'm just going to hot glue a loop right onto the back. Using the same paintbrush that has some white paint on it, I'm going to go ahead and just mark up these greenery pieces so they look like they've had a little touch of snow, just like I did with the skis. A little painting tip that I can give to you if you're painting a lot in one color like I do, I use white all the time. And this is my favorite little brush. I put it in a little Ziploc bag. You can see that to the left here. And it stayed over the holidays in this little bag and was totally fine. It was still nice and moist. You just need to make sure that it's completely sealed. Here's how my wreath looks hanging on my cupboards. I just love it. This last project is repurposing this birdhouse that I painted last spring. I had it attached to a large bamboo skewer sticking into one of my pots. So I can't get that little piece off to lay flat anymore. So I'm going to use some of these large tumbling tower blocks to create a base for it. I'm just going to glue them together with some hot glue. Now I'm simply going to just hot glue the birdhouse right on top of the wood blocks. Using the same DIY chalk paint in white and the same brush, I'm going to go ahead and give just the walls of the birdhouse a couple of coats of white paint. The roof is absolutely fine, but I wanted to make it look a little bit more like shingles or some shiplap maybe, or I don't know. Anyway, I wanted a wood roof on it. So I'm taking these jumbo craft sticks and I'm going to cut them about a quarter of an inch longer than the roof line itself, and then I'm going to glue them on. These miter shears are fantastic, but I do find that some wood doesn't really cut properly. It's a little too thick, and I don't have the strength in my hands to push really hard. So that's why you saw me just kind of pull up that popsicle stick. That just helps me to break it a little easier. I'm going to use hot glue and I'm going to start at the bottom, and then each next stick will be glued about halfway down the previous one. They don't have to be perfectly spaced apart. I'm all about rustic and just working with what I have. But once I got to the top, I did want to make sure that the top stick was perfectly aligned with the top peak of the house. So when I come across on the other side, they'll match up really well. This next part isn't necessary because there's already a roof line underneath my little sticks, but I decided that I wanted to extend the roof line out to the edge. So I'm going to be taking these little coffee stir sticks and cutting them at a 60-degree angle with my miter shears because that's going to fit right perfectly in at the peak. Then I'll just use a straight cut for the end and hot glue them into place. I'm using a lot of white and gray in my winter decor, so I decided to use the Folk Art Maui Sand, which is a charcoal color. It is a chalk paint, and I love using this chalk paint on raw wood because you only need one coat. I did have to touch up a few little spots, but the coverage is amazing. I also painted the wood base and the original base of the birdhouse with this color. For a little bit of a farmhouse flair, I decided to add some shiplap lines to the walls of the birdhouse. And absolutely no project of mine would be complete without a little bit of distressing. So using that same white brush, I'm going to go around the edges and just kind of flick up the sides. And then I'm also going to go on each of the little craft sticks just to give that some more dimension, and it turns out really pretty. I'm also going to do the same thing around the edge of the base. Here's how it looks. I hope you liked my DIYs today. If you did, I'd love for you to stick around a while. Hit that subscribe button. Those two black arrows will show you exactly where to click. Thank you so much for watching right to the end. I really appreciate your support. See you in the next one.